Hey everyone, welcome to Someone Else's Shoes. I'm your host, J.R. Supa. My guest today has been hailed as country music's next big star. She's toured the globe and shared the stage with some of the biggest names in country music, including Brad Paisley, Keith Urban, and Loretta Lynn. Her song Let's Don't peaked in the top 40 on America's Country Radio in 2018, and her latest single, Now or Never, is out now and taking the world by storm. Jessica Lynn, welcome to Someone Else's Shoes.
Thanks for having me.
It's really my pleasure. So before we get started, I just want to point out that there are actually like way more accolades that I could have covered in that intro, but I would have been talking for like 10 minutes before we even got to introduce you.
It was a perfect intro.
Okay. But I mean, you've had multiple hit songs, not just in America, but all over the world, including multiple nationwide TV specials. But arguably, I think for me, the most interesting thing is that you and your band are quite literally a family affair, right? Both your parents and your husband are in the band.
Yeah, so my mom is my background singer, my dad is my bass guitarist, and my husband is my lead guitarist. And although the rest of the band aren't technically family, they've been with me since 2012. So you can definitely call it that.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, when you guys tour, you're all together and it just becomes a family thing anyway.
We are, and you know what we have is so rare. Honestly, every night when we're on the road, like we did 3 months in Europe this past summer, like every night we had dinner together. Every morning we had breakfast together. We actually have a tradition that the day after we get home from tour, we all go out to dinner because we all miss each other already. And, you know, of course it's stressful, it's tiring, and people get cranky or whatever, just regular stuff on the road. But we all genuinely love each other, and we all have each other's backs. It's a really special relationship that we have for 7 people to have stayed together this long.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, family's supposed to fight. I mean, my sister and I fight each other all the time. Like that's how you know your family. You have to have at least 1 or 2 blowouts.
It's true. You know, but honestly, the best thing, there's 2 amazing things about working with your family. One is that you always get to experience everything together. For me, the best way, and I've thought long and hard about this because everybody always asks in interviews, what is it like working with your family? And for me, the best possible way that I've learned to explain it is, you know, when you're driving in your car and you see like the most amazing sunset and you're trying to get a picture with your cell phone and it looks so terrible after, like it never looks the same as in the moment. That's what it's like, because I never have to like call my husband and be like, oh, like this amazing thing happened in Poland or whatever. And it's not the same relaying the message after. He got to see it. Like he was there to, and then we could go back to like, oh my gosh, wasn't that the most amazing? It's like a totally different experience and bond that you share that way.
Yeah.
And the other side is that it's also awesome that we can be so brutally honest with each other. Because especially with creative things like music, you never want to hurt feelings. You always want to tread carefully, like, oh, I don't really like how you're playing that, or, you know, whatever. When it's family, you're just like, I don't like that.
Do it again.
Like, yeah, and they give it to me too. Like, that wasn't good.
Yeah.
Like, you know, or you look crazy doing that. Or when we're filming the video, like, you know, the music video, Steve will be on the sideline, like, you look terrible. Like, you pick this up.
Steve is your husband. So I don't know if that makes it better or worse for people that don't know.
He didn't technically say you look terrible. You know what I mean? Like, oh, your hair is frizzy or whatever. Like, he doesn't have to be like, maybe you should try to, like, you know, and it makes, honestly, honesty is the best policy. And you're never going to grow or get better if people are always like, you know, so gently, whatever.
There's no eggshells.
It's great. Yeah, it's great. It really is great. You can always be your best because you can always receive genuine and positively honest feedback.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's start, I think, with the why, right? The most popular question that I'm sure you get asked is, why did you decide to pursue this career? So was it always something that you wanted to do, or did something in particular kind of nudge you in this direction? Or was country music always the plan, like when you started this?
Country music was never the plan, but music was always the plan. There was never a moment that it was like, I'm going to be a singer. I was just always a singer.
Okay.
But even as little as 2, 3, 4 years old, I mean, my parents have videos of me singing and dancing, and I used to, oh my God, my poor family. I used to make them like videotape me for like 4 to 5 hours a day, just dancing and singing and putting on these performances that I had like full sets and like, which not much has changed actually. Um, and I just always knew it's what I wanted to do. There was never a decision to make. It was just inside. But when I was in the second grade, I was cast as Dorothy in my school play, my elementary school play.
Okay.
And for me, that was a very pivotal moment in my life, not because I made a decision to be a singer or a performer, but at the end of the play, I got to sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow all by myself, just out in front to end the play. And it's so crazy because I can remember this moment like it was yesterday. I remember the sights, the smells, the everything of this moment. Like I feel like I'm still standing there. And I remember singing it and just got this applause that lasted for 3 or 4 minutes, like a long time. And I remember looking out even as that little 8-year-old girl and being like, this is what I'm supposed to do
Right.
forever.
Just sitting there going,
And
I crushed this.
and like I remember going back. One of the classrooms was the dressing room, and I remember being there, and I think I was taking off my little ruby red slippers, and I remember a father, and I wish I knew who it was. I can't see his face, but coming up to me and being like, "You're gonna do something one day," and that was so cool. I'll always remember that.
That's awesome. So then what made you decide country music?
My husband actually, which is funny, and it's Italian jock from Long Island.
Well,
New
you're
York.
so for anyone who doesn't know, your whole family is Italian.
Yeah, I know. We're very Italian.
Yes. But in New York, Westchester County, gravy on Sundays kind of Italian.
Yeah. Yes. For me, I always loved country music growing up, and I was always listening to it, but I was never performing it or really. I wrote a few country music things on the side, but I mean, growing up in New York, like God forbid you told your friends, "Oh yeah, listening to George Strait this weekend, like come on over, guys." Like you just couldn't do that.
What are you, nuts?
So I know. So I was listening to it alone at home and writing some things, and my dad always loved it. And oddly enough, when I met my husband, who was then just my friend, I started writing all of this country music about our relationship out of nowhere, an entire album's worth. And that became the first television special, which started my whole career.
And that was how long ago?
That was in 2012.
Wow. That's nuts. So it just kind of happened.
Yeah, really. I think the best things in life happen that way.
Yeah.
Where you're not expecting it, and it's just little signs like, here it's this is meant to be. Here, take this.
Here you go.
Yeah, that's what it was like. It really was. Yeah.
But I mean, so it's safe to say you've been pretty successful thus far in your music career, right? It's only been 8 years, but you've been doing great things. So what's interesting is that you haven't taken the, I guess, quote unquote, traditional approach to get to where you are now. And this, I think, is a big part of the industry that a lot of people don't know about, is what it takes to actually get music out there. And so I want to talk about, I want you to talk about what it's like and what that traditional route is, and then the route that you kind of took, because I think that's where a lot of the hardships come into play, right? Is like it's one thing to get an agent and a manager and a record label and have them just put your stuff out there, but to do it the way you've done it is completely different and much more challenging.
The music business has changed so much over the last several years. I mean, it used to be, even just as a kid, I remember the dreams of you'd be singing. You see it in all the movies and the TV shows where you're singing in this club and this big record exec comes in and signs you. Like that's what you think the music business is. that is not the music business for a very long time now. There's so much risk associated with taking on new artists and acts and music that nobody wants to put their job on the line like that anymore. So people aren't just signing people. For you to get signed these days, I mean, you got to have a lot of stuff that you're coming with. Radio success, Spotify success, a big social media following. I mean, it's just the way it is. You pretty much have to build yourself up from the ground up and then hope that somebody sees enough value in what you were able to accomplish. And, to be honest, over the years, yeah, my goal has been to get a record deal, and I do have faith that the right partner will come along. We've had many deals come across, my desk, I guess you could say, of deals that just weren't right, or deals that wanted to take too much of what I've worked really hard to accomplish and fund on my own. And I think when we find the right partner, we're going to know it. And, but yeah, it's very interesting trying to build a career from the ground up alone. You have to have a lot of creativity in terms of how you fund things for yourself. It is very expensive to have a music career. It's not like, oh, you just get played on the radio. Right. There's extreme costs associated with radio packages, plugging your music on Spotify. And I mean the real way. I mean, I could go spend $10 right now and get 10,000 hits on my Spotify account. But what is that really going to do for you?
Right.
Great. I have 5 million listeners, but I can't sell one ticket to a show. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
I think that's something a lot of new artists don't realize. Like, they don't think out the long-term effects of what doing things the fast and cheap way, where that could lead them. But doing it the right way it's an extreme investment in your time, your talent, your energy. But when you do things the right way and you think creatively and you think outside the box, you can get where you want to be because you are building a legitimate career with legitimate fans and followers. And I think even just for me, being an Italian New Yorker born in Brooklyn, doing country music, for me to do anything the by the book way would have been strange.
Got Tommy 2 times coming over.
Yeah.
Okay, so to break the fourth wall a little bit, you and I are friends, which is the only reason why I've been able to get somebody who's actually a country music artist on a podcast that I'm doing in my basement. We've known each other for, 6 years?
2004, my first tour.
Yeah, 2014, right? So, yeah. And we met out on the road we met in Montana.
Montana. Because
you needed a ride to the tent, and I had the only go-kart that was available.
And here we are 6 years later, still
and it's
friends.
Also funny because I met your dad before you, because your dad being your manager at this point, I was working at part of the accounting team for all the festivals that you were going to, and I had paid him a couple times already. And he made fun of my accent, which I thought was hilarious.
It's funny how things work.
I know, because he came in like super New York and then heard me speak, and he was like, where are you from?
Out in Montana, of all places.
But yeah, so that you've had a lot of success given the fact that you're doing things this way. And I think what's really amazing is that you aren't just successful here. You're successful in, across the pond, if you will. Right? You've done what? Top 10 in Italy, top 100 in the UK, if I remember correctly.
And top 10 in Austria this year too.
Yep.
Which is so exciting.
But then you've also blown up recently. We were having dinner like a couple of months ago, and you were telling me how you've blown up in India, which I think is so cool.
I do too, because I don't know how it happened. I mean, the only thing I could think of is that I'm very engaged with my fans on social media. And I try to answer all my messages. I don't have anybody that helps me with my accounts. I do it all myself. It's one of my favorite parts of the job is talking to the people that consume my music and my content. So the only thing I could think of is that I was speaking with a few Indian fans that were like, "Oh, this American artist is talking to me," and then they told a friend, and they told a friend,
Yeah,
and um, it's just funny how that stuff happens.
because your
Sometimes
followers are very loyal people. Like you
they
have a
are.
very loyal following.
They are the best. They really, really are the best. I mean, I can't say enough nice things about my fans, and not just because they're my fans. Even people that open for me always say after every show, "Your fans are the nicest fans I've ever met," and I really believe that. I mean, they care about me as a person. They care about everything that I even care about. Last night I did a live stream for the Guitar Center Music Foundation, which benefits musicians that are in need during this time, and also gives music grants, and programs, instrument grants, and things like that to kids. And they were there, all my fans donating, like just being so. I'm just so proud, like to be associated with these people. They're wonderful.
That's so awesome. It's nice to have the right fans.
Yeah.
Not just to have fans, but to have the right fans is
Yeah.
definitely
No,
a plus.
they're great.
So going back to the different approaches, just so I think we can help people kind of understand the difference between what you're doing and, let's say, Carrie Underwood, right? Big name. When she puts out a song, it's immediately just everywhere, right? It hits the top 40 because her name is on it. And so how does that, like, what is that process really compared to what you guys are doing?
So, the name of the game of the music industry is how much money do you have? I hate to say it that way, which is a very hard reality. Again, is that little, like I was saying, 8-year-old girl that's like, oh, someone's gonna discover me, and I'm gonna release this. I'm gonna have a song on radio. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But behind every single big artist, there's like $1 million behind each song just to get it out there. And how does someone like me or other independent artists or artists that are rising or trying to get known compete with that? You can't.
Yeah, because
You
you're
just
not
cannot.
you're not sitting on $1 million that we don't know about.
No, I wish I was.
Your dad was an NYPD. He's not rolling. He may have a
Yeah.
good pension, but he's not rolling in it.
No. And it, to be honest with you, it's caused a lot of hard moments in my career because you sit and I mean, honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. The reason I'm going to say this is because hopefully I can help other artists that are struggling with this. I would sit there and I'd want to write a song, and sometimes I'd get so upset about it. Like, well, what's the point? Like, I could write the most amazing thing right now, and it's never going to be top 10. Like, it's a very hard feeling to realize that no matter what you do, you can't compete unless you get that type of funding or money behind you with a record label or whatever it is. But then on the positive side of things, I mean, even the marketing that these big artists have, you just can never afford it.
Yeah.
Like the most basic radio package that you could get runs about 10 grand. And that's not even for Billboard stations. If you want to go after Billboard stations, like the mainstream radio, like my singles charted on country radio, which was only country. It wasn't Billboard stations. Give me a guess what you think Billboard per month costs to
Per
get
month?
a promoter.
Are you
Yeah,
talking? So a package for 10 grand to get on the radio station is 1 month's worth of listens.
No, so 10 grand was what we put behind Crazy Idea, for example, which was my hard-earned personal money. Which again, for someone like me, is a lot of money as compared to like Carrie Underwood or somebody. And that's so that you have a promoter that will call the secondary country radio stations, which isn't Billboard, every week and be like, hey, that runs about 14 weeks.
Okay.
Be like, hey, this great new song. Can you add it to your rotation? Come on, you did 4 spins last week. Can you give me another 2 spins? Let's bring it up to 6 this week, like that type of thing.
Right.
And that's how you chart and you move up the charts. Billboard is the step up from that, which is like the mainstream, like
Right.
mainstream country radio. Guess what per month a Billboard promoter is?
I'm going to say outlandish because I'm going to go with like $100,000 a month.
It's $25,000 a month.
Okay.
25 to 30,000 a month.
A month. Just to get Billboard stations to play your song however many times they feel like playing it.
Not even to definitely get them to play it. That's to get the promoter to put it into their hands.
You're just paying the promoter that much money. You're not even guaranteed that it's going to get played. You're just paying for the guy that has a connection to those stations to say, hey, how do you feel about this song?
Yep.
Jesus.
How does a regular person do that?
How do you come up with $25,000 a month?
For 1 month. And that's not even...
And that's just one song for one promoter.
Yeah, you're not even going to get... It needs to go like 14 to 16 weeks or 12 to 16 weeks. So you're not even going to get spins if you sunk your life savings of $25,000 into the 1 month. You probably will just get the introduction. Like you won't even get the constant, like, hey, can you up it or whatever. So to answer your question, you have to think of ways as a regular person or an artist that isn't at the top of the charts with that type of money to get your music out there. So for me, is when I was starting, even now, I think, what is free? What can I do that can help get my music out there in more of a roots approach? And for me, that was social media.
Mm-hmm.
I've grown my following organically to almost 400,000 people on Facebook, just by interacting and
that's amazing.
Putting content out, and that doesn't cost me anything to do. That's how you can gain fans.
Yeah.
There's a ton of things going on tour. Yes, touring can be very expensive, but you also have an income that helps you cover that when you're out on the road.
Yep.
But even that, shaking hands, those are people that will be your fans, or see you play. If you don't have, that's how I built my career. Yeah. I had no money for radio. I didn't even have a radio single until 2017, and I started my first USA tour in 2014. So that, again, was my kind of weird approach. Like, I can't afford this.
Yep.
So how can I get fans?
Putting your music in front of people.
In a way that was affordable.
However, so like when we met, you were on stage. Who played that night? Keith Urban or Brad Paisley?
No, it was Montgomery Gentry.
Was it Montgomery? Oh, that was in Montana. But you were on stage in Colorado, too.
With Keith Urban.
It was Keith Urban. And that's the thing. There were, 30,000 people there to see Keith Urban. And they're going to watch as someone who knew what they were paying for a ticket, you're going to go and see as many people as you can.
Yeah.
You're going to spend that day listening to music. And, so just being on stage in front of that many people are going to go, oh, wow, I like her. And then that's kind of how it just organically happens is, going on tour and getting yourself onto these stages. You don't necessarily need to be a headliner right away.
That is true. It's the best. And again, you have to think creatively, like your thought process that you just had. That's how I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'm not making a lot of money to do these shows, but what's more valuable than money right now? Fans that will eventually turn into more bigger gigs and all this stuff. So we invested in the touring. That didn't cost me $25,000 a month. That was something that was affordable to me as an independent artist. Selling merch, that's a way to get your fan base up and to bring in income. Work your social media, put stuff on your YouTube channel. I mean, there's a million and one things that you could do if you just have the right mindset about thinking, like, what can I do to build my career that I can afford that's smart?
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of people, like myself included, you go to a show and you see like all this merch and you go, ugh, why is it so expensive, right? Like, I like this person, but why is the merch so expensive? Well, first of all, if you're at a venue and you're not selling your own merch, they're taking a chunk of whatever you sell. just to be
Yeah.
able to take your merch, right? Just to be able to
Yeah.
get your merch out there. So, and I think people need to be aware of, with artists like you, as opposed to artists like, I'm just going to keep saying Carrie Underwood because that's the first name that pops into my head. Somebody buying Carrie Underwood merch does nothing for Carrie Underwood, right? She can take it or leave it. But if the decision is buy that or buy a Jessica Lynn hoodie or a Jessica Lynn hat, that's going to make a much bigger difference for you, because that's what's helping you continue this career right now.
Yeah, it's so true. And that's to talk about how great my fans are again. They kept me afloat during this pandemic by buying my merchandise.
That's what I wanted to talk
You
to you
know,
about next, too.
yeah, I mean, the minute everything started falling apart, we started getting purchase after purchase after purchase. And I can't tell you how much that means, because that $20 or whatever that's coming in from the t-shirt, or you have like literally helped me fund my music video. With, like you said, like Carrie Underwood, of course, every dollar counts and
Oh,
all
yeah.
that. And they also have much greater expenses than we do as a smaller operation, which people tend to forget. They think, oh, you're making all this money, rolling all this dough. You have the amount of people that you have to pay and things you have to do, I mean,
Yeah.
is insane. Even at my level, the expenses are immense. I can only imagine what somebody like, her pays to do a tour with all those
Yeah.
effects and crew. And
She's
but
still
it
doing
was
okay,
so, yeah. It meant the world. We lost so much money. 80 tour dates, 11 countries. I
Yeah.
mean, our loss was immense.
2020 has been pretty much a washout for the events industry in general, right? Across the
Yeah.
board. Sports are just barely coming back now, but you still can't have fans. And, that might work for sports, but that doesn't really work for music, right? Like if you're on stage and you're playing music and there's no one there, it's different.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a performer, but I know you feed off the crowd.
Yeah, you do. And I'm sure sports players do too, but it's different. You're focusing on a task, and I'm
Yeah.
not a sports player, so I can't say this, but like, I feel like from my perspective, when it's music, you need that interaction with the audience. It's just like a different thing.
Yeah.
But
Well,
again, like a big artist like that on the label or something like a Carrie Underwood, during this pandemic, the label can help them still fund and move ahead and do
Mhm.
whatever. An artist like me, 100% of our funding comes from touring. So I don't have that guy sitting in the office at the label. It's like, oh, your new single needs to come out. Here's, 50
Right.
grand to put behind it. Like literally our funding went to zero. And I think that the fans knew that, and they really stood by me, and we appreciated it so much.
That's amazing. Yeah. Because I mean, it's got to suck to be hyped, right? Because you guys get so excited to go on tour and to do all these things, and then just to be like to get a phone call, because you had a European tour too this year that you were supposed to
Yeah.
do,
5 months straight on the road to
and
zero.
to absolutely nothing. And that's, like you said, those dollars not only fund you being able to go to the tour, like go, because that's what pays for, like, what people might not realize is, just because you're playing at a concert, or a music festival or whatever, you still have to get there yourself.
Yeah.
They're not flying
Very
you out.
It is very, very expensive.
Yeah. So you
Extremely.
guys have to get the
Thousands
bus,
on
and you guys have to, take all your equipment and all your people and drive out there and pay for food and for gas and for, all these other expenses just to get to this, show. And then whatever they pay at the show pays for it. And then you go to the
put it
next
in
show.
perspective, yeah, think about it. So if you just think about it this way, with some quick math, flights to Europe for my band last year were about $5,000. That's only flights.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think about, we need 4 hotel rooms for every night. So say a hotel room's $100. That's being conservative.
Right.
So that's $400 a day just in accommodations, times 90 days, 3 months. What does that cost?
Yes.
Let's
quick math.
So what?
Hang on, I'll just cut this part out
Okay,
as I open up the calculator.
so 400
400
times
times
90,
90 is $36,000
only in accommodation.
just in room and board. That has, and you still have to get from place to place, right? So you're
Yeah,
you're
that's
gonna
not transportation.
rent a bus or a truck or something so that all of you, a van or something that you can all get in, plus
Yep,
all this equipment you're toting along.
yep. That's
It
also not paying anybody.
right.
So if you do the $36,000 in hotels plus $5,000 in flights, we're already $41,000 without any other expenses that come with the road: gas, marketing for the shows,
Hmm.
paying everybody to be there. Like, that's a hefty bill.
Right. The band, by the way, everybody, the band still has to make money.
Yeah, even though they're my mom, dad, and husband, I still got to pay them, I guess.
Well, and I mean, it's not just a 4-person band, right?
No,
You
there's
have what,
7 of us.
7? 7.
Yep, and we
Yeah.
do someone that sells our merch. So that's another expense, sometimes another hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's a lot. So again, losing all the touring and everything, all of your funding goes out the window.
Yeah.
And it was a very hard year for me, emotionally, because all those tour dates took me a year to put together. So it was a year of work for nothing. Also a year of work for free, because you don't get paid to do all that. You get paid when it happens.
Right.
Yeah, as a musician. So I worked literally a year for free, for a payoff that never came, both
Mm-hmm.
in terms of opportunity and finances. And with the single release and everything and all this great stuff happening with Now or Never, it was very sad when all of the big plans that we had for the single, the YouTube
Yep.
promotion and this and the radio stuff, you had to cancel everything
And just to be able
because
to
there
go
was
out and
just so much.
perform it, right? You do all this work, you write this great song, and then you can't shout it to the rafters, right? You can only release it, but you can't
It was
jump on
very
a
sad.
stage and sing it to people.
Yeah, to have to cancel everything that we had planned for the single was very hard for me
I'm sure.
emotionally. It really was. But everything, just even looking at my calendar now, like I got teary eyed the other day because I was sitting here doing something and I opened up my calendar and it was like Munich, and it was like just it's a terrible feeling. And I know that I'm not the only one going through this. But again, and not to put us above anyone else, it's very different being in the entertainment industry right now than some other industries. Like, I
Yeah.
totally understand. A lot of people are out of work. A lot of people are struggling. But for the entertainment industry, like, for example, my friends with salons, they've been struggling,
Mm-hmm.
financially, emotionally, mentally, everything just like us. But they're starting to open again.
Right. Well, there's also a
We,
plan for them.
yes, there's
You know
no
what I
plan
mean?
for us.
That's the thing is like the entertainment industry or the events industry has no plan.
No,
There's no stage for
no,
us or
no.
for
And even
you.
if you
I say
say,
us because my wife runs an event venue and
yeah,
she's just sitting, like, she works every day, but she's had to furlough her whole staff, and there is no, like, this is when you're going to be able to have a wedding again.
no, it's
It's
terrible.
yeah.
And even if you say, okay, you can start doing live music stage 27, it's like, how many people,
Right.
can we have? Or music is not something that it's like, okay, you can open tomorrow. Gigs take a long time to book
Hmm.
and promote. So I've had everything canceled up until October 30th. Like, that's not something that when October 1st hits and everything's clear, it's like, we're going.
Right.
Like, it's going to be a long time. And say even we get the clear to just go. Who says people are going to be comfortable buying tickets again and
Yep.
sitting next to people like that? And I mean, there's so many unknowns with our business that make it a lot more difficult than a lot of other industries
Well, and
out there right now.
how about these festivals, right? So like the music festivals and shows that take place every year that rely on the income they earn every year to fund the next year. Some of these
Yeah.
shows aren't going to come back. Some of
No.
these festivals are going to go bankrupt.
We had a date cancel on us for England, the place closed, like for good.
Yeah.
That's such a shame. That's these small music venues and places like this. I mean, that's someone's livelihood.
Yep.
You know,
A lot of
that's
these places are privately owned. They're not owned by big corporations. And it's
very, very sad.
and it's
It's really
and then there's the trickle down effect, right? Because now just because you had been booked for this show and the show got canceled this year doesn't mean 2021 Jessica Lynn's name is going to be on the bill. Like,
yeah,
you have to go through all that work that you did in 2019 all over again with the hopes of getting back in 2021.
yeah, with the hope.
And
And
right,
even though we're both, who's to say that it's definitely going to happen again?
right. And
Because you
then
don't know if people will buy tickets.
yeah,
You
and
don't
on top
know
of that, you have the places that you were booked that are closing, and now you have to work twice as hard to refill that date. Right? That part
Yeah,
of the tour you need to have a place to be.
it's very weird. And I don't think people that are maybe not in this industry don't realize the astronomical effects that this has had, you know, on people like me. Um, uh, it's it's a very it's not a good place to be.
Yeah.
But again, you tried to look at the silver lining and everything. You have to. I sat there. I'm not gonna lie. The first few days that we lost everything, each time. First, I took the Europe hit. Then I had to take the USA hit. Then I had to take the losing all the funding for all of the single promotions and everything hit. Each time I let it beat me up. Not gonna lie, it took a few days after each to just cry and just feel and just be upset and sad and um but then you gotta get back up, be like, all right, let's do this. Let's go online. Let's do this. Let's try this thing instead of what we had planned. Let's can't do this show, but let's ask the venue if they want to do something online instead. Or, you got to just think positively and move forward. You can't just let it beat you up forever.
Yeah.
It's good to feel and let those emotions out. I needed to let out my frustration and my sadness about everything I had lost. It's like any type of, the stages of losing anything. You got to kind of go through
You're
that.
going through the 5 stages of grief.
Yeah. And then you kind of like, all right, let's try again. And you have to, because again, we don't know how long we're going to be affected by this thing. And
Yeah.
we got to make something happen and keep going. You can't just lie down forever.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's talk about some positives then. First, Now or Never, right? You have a brand new single out. So talk to me about the inspiration for the song, the video, and just a little bit about like the whole process of that song.
So the inspiration for Now or Never was your first love and that nostalgic feeling of that excitement of that whole thing. I mean, honestly, your first love and being young, like in like falling for somebody, is unlike any other experience you ever have in your life. Like
Mm-hmm.
being young and feeling that. And like those moments of like, I'm outside your house, like, come on, let's like go do this adventure. Like you don't experience that stuff once you hit a certain age. That now or never instinct to
Yep.
like, yeah, let's go.
Let's go.
Like my mom's sleeping, like hurry up, like
Sneaking out
like
the second floor window.
yeah, like that type of stuff and that type of excitement only happens when you're young like
Yeah.
that. Um, and so that was really the inspiration for that. Like, okay, like this now or never feeling of just feeling young and excited um and it's fun. And the music video portrays that too. I don't want to give too much away, but it's set at a retro old drive-in movie theater, and it's two young kids. First time I ever used actors in a music video.
Mm-hmm.
Go on this now or never adventure of this great night, like falling in love, and it's actually a funny story with that single because the whole rest of the album is very, very soul influenced. And like my single Run To that came out right before that, it kind of has like this backbeat that's a little bit, they're a little more mature sounding the whole
Mm-hmm.
rest of the album. And I wrote Now or Never, and I loved the song because it reminded me a lot, honestly, of I grew up listening to a lot of like Simple Plan and like all that kind of pop rock fun music. And it reminded me of that. And maybe because I listened to all that music when I was young, or who knows
Yeah.
what it was. But I really wanted to put it on the record, and we're looking at the song list. And I'm like, this song just like it doesn't fit. Like, where do we put it? Do we put it at the end so it's not like, whoa, what is that in the middle of all this other like more mature soul influenced music? Because I mean, everything has like this undertone of rock and roll to it, which Now or Never definitely has. But
Mhm.
again, it was like this sore thumb in the middle of this album. So I asked my dad, who's producing the record, I'm like, can you finish Now or Never first as one of the first songs? Because I want to see, like, we had the arsenal of all the music in various stages of completion from the band, recording and us doing whatever to it. And I said, I want to listen to that early on because if this is really going to be that big of a sore thumb when it's done, we need to make a plan for replacing it. So I'll need to know if I'll need to start writing some
Yeah.
more stuff or whatever. So please finish that. So we have a Dropbox of all the stuff that's done so far. So we had like Run 2. We had this single that was set to come out. Like we had the artwork done, we had the music video planned, everything. And it was a song called Love Me That Way, which was more in line with Run 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was in the Dropbox along with one other, and Now or Never. So Steve and I are driving in the car. It was a really like hot summer day recently. The sun was coming through, like the windows were down, my hair was blowing. We're driving, listening to the tracks in this Dropbox. I'm really enjoying everything. And then Now or Never comes on, and the two of us are like in the sunshine, like, like it was like so fun and like peppy and like with the sun and the wind. It was like, man, like I looked at him, I'm like, no pun intended, but I think it's Now or Never to release this song. Like this needs to be in the summer with this weather and
Yep.
like this, atmosphere. It's not going to work to do it any other time. So I called my dad. I'm like, I think Now or Never has to be the single. And they were like, all right. And I called my other, like my digital manager, and he was like, yeah, I just listened to it. I was like, go listen in your car. And he's like, that's got to be the song. So then I sent it to our PR team in the UK. I was like, not going to say anything about either of these. Which one, A or B, for the next single? And unanimously, oh, this is so perfect for summer. It's got to be Now or Never. So I did the photo shoot for the artwork the next day, like the next morning. We redid the whole music video concept. We had to race to get everything uploaded to release in time and iTunes and all these things because everything else was set. Like
Yeah.
this was so last minute. But I went with my gut. And so that's how Now or Never came to be. It was never even supposed to be like even on the album. And it was just a gut reaction, like it's gotta be Now or Never.
Yeah. Well, it's a great song, so I think that's you made a good choice.
Thanks.
Okay, so last thing, the silver lining that you mentioned before, the couple of things that have helped you get through besides family, because I mean I've met your family. They're wonderful people. So
Thanks.
to be surrounded by them and the band too. But when I say family, I mean your whole family, your extended family included. They're all wonderful people. So to have them around you, I'm sure has definitely helped manage this whole COVID mess. But there's also been some furry friends that you've had that help you through that people might not know about. I mean, if they follow you on Instagram, they know all about your little raccoons, the 37, the family of 37 raccoons that lives outside your back door. But also you guys are fostering a wonderful little puppy.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like I just saw myself on camera, like my whole face light up as soon as you mentioned furry friends. Like a mother talking about her newborn baby.
Your little fur babies.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a huge animal lover, and I don't follow really any rescue pages or anything like that because my heart breaks when I see this stuff, and it affects me for days and days and days. And I knew that if I did follow these pages, I would be saving like 500 animals like a day. So I, it's funny, like a big believer, everything's meant to be. I started to get wind from the UK first that maybe the tour wasn't going to happen. They kept writing me like things really aren't looking good here. Like, I don't know, you might want to consider canceling. I'm like, I'm not canceling. Like, we don't know anything. It's way too early on. This was like in beginning of March.
Hmm.
And I was like, no way. The tour's like June 1st. We are good. Like, I really didn't think there was any chance anything was going to get canceled. But then as things started to develop, I was like, okay, like maybe we do have to call it quits on this tour. And everybody started canceling. So at the same time that that was happening, a friend of mine posted a repost from a rescue page that said, "This dog, urgent care, urgent foster, please help. This dog has nowhere to go." And she was found in an abandoned house in Texas with both of her back feet severed and a spinal injury. So it looks like they were chopped off by somebody. But again, nobody was there to really ever know. She was found abandoned. But I mean, really terrible abuse. Like her tendons were hanging out at the bottom of her feet. And I saw her little face on my Instagram. I'm like, we have to get this dog. Like, this is the like, this is why the tour is falling apart. I meant to save this dog. So the next day she was at my house. And I mean, she is just she's been an inspiration, honestly, for me. The way that she is so resilient and wakes up every day with these injuries and is just like, I'm happy, I'm alive, like I'm breathing. That was a big inspiration for me. I had a few days, like I said, when I was just so depressed about everything, and I'd look over at her sitting there like smiling, with her little cast on her feet, and I was like I can be more like Audrey, like look, bad things can happen to you, and you can move on, and you can live a great life and have opportunity, and you never know what's right around the corner. So just like her, she never knew. We always think, we said it last night actually, we think about her sitting there so injured and alone and scared and hungry and dirty, and then the next day she's having salmon fillet for dinner in our nice warm house, in her $75 Tempur-Pedic mattress bed. So, like you
Yeah.
think things can turn around in a minute.
And she's
And always stay
overcome too,
positive.
right? Because she was supposed to have. You said she was supposed to, or you told me not recently, but when we had dinner, she was supposed to have like prosthetics or something, right, to help with her
Yeah,
feet, because they said she's not going to run or walk or anything. And all I see are videos of her just running around the backyard, her and Steve.
yeah, and she really is so resilient. She had a wheelchair that she refuses to use because she knows she can walk and run. So we don't use the wheelchair. We're trying to still get the wounds on the bottom of her feet to close over, which is
Hmm.
really hard because they're trying to literally like close in
Right.
over the open portion, which is difficult because you have all 44 pounds of her standing on those open wounds day in and day out. So it's a lot of work for us making her fake feet out of like gauze and
Hmm.
taking care of the wounds. We wrap her at least twice a day to keep them clean. So it really is a lot of work, but she is healing. And when her wounds heal, we're going to get her fit for the prosthetics so that she can be able to just get up and go without us having to constantly wrap and gauze. And so I'm really excited for that. And she's come so far, and she's so great. She's like the best dog.
That's amazing. Lover of puppies and raccoons alike.
Yes, and we have the babies. I've actually been
Oh,
waiting
raccoon
for the right
babies are
time
here
to
now?
drop on my Instagram story the babies.
Oh, jeez.
Cutest thing you'll ever see in your whole life. You are welcome in advance.
I can't wait. I anxiously await the story. All right. So tell everybody where they can find Now or Never, Run To, all your other wonderful music.
My website is jessicalynmusic.org, and I'm on Spotify, iTunes, all social media platforms at Jessica Lynn Music.
Fantastic. Jessica Lynn, thank you so much for taking the
Thank you.
time to do this interview.
This was so fun. Thanks for having me.
I
It was
try,
nice to be
I,
professional again together.
I'm more than just a pretty face.
This is great.
All right. This has been Someone Else's Shoes. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.